Are you in a good place now in your life?
Depends on when you ask me whether or not it's a good place. Right now, no, not particularly.
Luther Vandross was an R&B legend who suffered a severe stroke in April 2003 and died in 2005. He was the velvet voice behind Never Too Much, a master of modern ballads who could quiet an arena with a single breath. For years, rumors tried to explain why his voice went silent. In this video, we stick to the record, and by the end, the mystery of what really happened to Luther Vandross will be solved. He wasn't just a singer. He set the mood for entire decades. One hum before a verse could change the temperature in a room. A held vowel could make the balcony lean forward. Luther's sound turned proposals into promises and living rooms into dance floors. He belonged to families as much as to charts, and audiences trusted him with their most personal moments. Luther Vandross Jr. was born April 20th, 1951 in Manhattan. His sisters stacked soul and pop on the turntable, and he studied phrasing like homework. As a teenager, he joined Listen My Brother, an Apollo Theater youth ensemble that appeared during the first season of Sesame Street. It wasn't fame, it was training. How to send warmth through a microphone and make it feel like conversation. Beyond those first steps were early losses and long subway rides that shaped his focus. His father died of complications from diabetes when Luther was 8, and the family soon moved from Manhattan's Lower East Side to the Bronx. He graduated from William Howard Taft High School in 1969 and briefly attended Western Michigan University before returning to New York to chase studio work. Those moves matter because they explain the urgency you can hear later. A singer who knew that time is precious and craft is the only thing you can control. Long before the spotlight found his name, his ear found work. He cut demos for other writers, learned to stack harmonies with surgical precision, and paid the rent with studio calls that kept coming because he never delivered a lazy take. Commercial producers noticed. He became one of the most in-demand jingle voices of the 1970s, selling soda, fast food, and weekend TV lineups with a smile you could hear. Those short sessions sharpened a lifelong habit. Sing exactly what the song needs, nothing more. Those side gigs overlapped with a reputation among New York producers for backgrounds that felt like architecture. He backed Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway, Diana Ross, Carly Simon, Bette Midler, Chaka Khan, and others, learning how to shape a chorus without smothering a lead. That was the hidden apprenticeship. He wasn't just practicing, he was engineering feelings from the back row and taking notes for later. By the mid-1970s, he was already shaping other people's sound. In 1974, at Philadelphia's Sigma Sound Studios, David Bowie was building a soul-steeped pivot called Young Americans. Luther helped design the background vocal architecture, sang on the sessions, and co-wrote Fascination, which evolved from his earlier tune, Funky Music Is a Part of Me. It's one reason you can hear a churchy glide under Bowie's plastic soul. Vandross arranged voices to move like a single instrument. He also fronted a short-lived group that bore his first name. 2 albums came and went with little promotion, but those records became a training ground for the sound he would later perfect. Tight rhythm sections, plush vocals, and arrangements that left space for a story to breathe. When the label dropped the project, he bought back the masters rather than watch the music drift. That decision said as much about his standards as any award. A turn just before his solo breakthrough changed the trajectory again. Italian-American studio outfit Change tapped him to sing lead on The Glow of Love and Searching. Those club records lit up dance floors, especially in New York, and A&R people finally stopped asking whether he could carry a track on his own. The answer was on every dance chart in the city. The Glow of Love wasn't just a club moment. It hit #1 on the US dance chart in 1980 and made his name ring far beyond the 5 boroughs. Listen closely and you'll hear the hallmarks of his later ballads baked into an up-tempo frame, generous phrasing, long lines, and the sense that he's guiding the band rather than chasing it. Then came the solo era. Never Too Much landed in 1981 and announced a lane he would own for the next 2 decades. He didn't chase volume, he chased control. Mid-tempo grooves that took their time. Ballads that let the truth sit still before it rose. He refreshed standards like A House Is Not a Home and delivered new staples. Here and Now, So Amazing, Any Love, and Power of Love, Love Power. He became the benchmark for intimacy you could trust, the voice couples chose for vows and reconciliations. That run also anchored an entire radio mood. Quiet Storm programmers built late-night hours around the calm he could stretch across a chord change, while producers like Nat Adderley Jr. and Marcus Miller helped shape a consistent palette. Rhythm sections that landed like conversation, strings that held phrases instead of smothering them, and background stacks that worked like beams. If you want the technical shorthand for his magic, it's economy, every ad-lib placed where it adds feeling, never where it adds noise. The run that followed felt inevitable from the outside because the inside was disciplined. Forever, for always, for love deepened the palette. Busybody tightened the pocket. The Night I Fell in Love stretched the slow burn blueprint to its logical peak. Give Me the Reason layered cinematic sheen over everyday emotion. Across it all was the same signature, economy, phrasing, and an arranger's ear that treated every background part like scaffolding. His partnership with bassist-producer Marcus Miller locked in that aesthetic, an air where lesser productions would cram parts, corners rounded until the melody could glide. Offstage, he was exacting. He cared about arrangements, mic choices, rehearsal discipline, and even catering. Weight moved up and down, and he spoke about it openly. Hypertension and type 2 diabetes followed him. None of that defined the sound. It defined the fight that started when the lights went off. He worked anyway. He always did. At the same time, he kept lending that ear to other giants. He arranged and sang behind legends whose voices didn't need help but sounded better with him anyway. Aretha Franklin's Churchy Fire, Dionne Warwick's Conversational Grace, and studio royalty across pop and R&B. He could fill a chorus without drawing attention to himself, then step out front and make the same chorus sound inevitable. That dual talent, architect and star, was rare even then. Then came the first night people skipped because it hurt. January 12, 1986, Laurel Canyon Boulevard, Los Angeles. Luther's Mercedes crossed the center line and struck oncoming traffic. Lawrence Salvemini, one of the two brothers riding with him, died. The other was seriously hurt. Police said speed was involved. Prosecutors filed misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter and reckless driving charges. That December, Luther pleaded no contest to reckless driving, received probation, fulfilled court-ordered benefit obligations, including a scholarship honoring the victim, and later settled a wrongful death suit brought by the family. Contemporary reports noted there was no evidence of alcohol or drugs. The case closed on paper. The wound did not. People close to him say you could hear a different kind of caution in the way he handled quiet after that, like language itself might bruise. The civil record adds detail to the legal outcome. City files and contemporaneous coverage show Los Angeles approved a $50,000 contribution toward a settlement of roughly $692,000, with the bulk paid by Vandross or his insurer. Police alleged he had been traveling about 50 mph in a 35 mph zone. Luther's attorneys pointed to confusing lane markings, a narrowing roadway, and slick debris as hazards near the crash site on Laurel Canyon at Berry Drive. The court disposition and the settlement didn't erase the loss, but they explained why he spoke sparingly about that day afterwards. The facts were documented. Grief was not. In the months that followed, he made small adjustments that few fans noticed. Shorter runs of dates, tighter travel days, a set list that leaned on pacing rather than spectacle. He never addressed the details in interviews beyond the legal record, but there was a steadiness in his posture on stage that hadn't been there before, a sense that every choice was measured against consequence. He returned to the only place he knew how to make sense of the world, the studio. The late 80s and 90s brought tours, platinum plaques, and collaborations where he framed other giants without eclipsing them. Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, and Janet Jackson. He sounded like himself and made them sound even more themselves. Behind the work, the health battle continued. Blood pressure, blood sugar, the tug of war between travel and rest. He made progress, talked about it on television, and kept going. Milestones from that stretch underline how consistently he delivered. Here and Now earned him his first Grammy in 1991. The next year, Power of Love, Love Power brought two more, including Best R&B Song with Marcus Miller and Teddy Van. In '97, he added another Best Male R&B Vocal Trophy for Your Secret Love. And if you want a snapshot of how the wider public already regarded his authority, consider January 26, 1997. He sang the national anthem at Super Bowl 21 in New Orleans, a measured, resonant performance that still circulates as a masterclass in restraint. The early 2000s found him recommitting to routine. He hired nutrition help, trimmed his schedule, and celebrated visible progress in interviews. Photos from that period show a slimmer frame and an easy pride that felt earned. He spoke plainly about the stakes because he understood how many fans shared the same risks. He wanted them to see success as maintenance rather than a one-time fix. Then he started a project that felt like a letter home. Dance with My Father was recorded in 2002 and early 2003. Its title track dedicated to the dad he lost when he was a child. The album came out June 10, 2003, and did something he had never done before. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. The music sounded like a home movie scored by memory, strings that made space, verses that left room for real life to sit down. It should have been a victory lap. Instead, the ground had already shifted under his feet. That title song had its own intimate lineage. He wrote it with Richard Marx, a friend and collaborator who understood how to build melodies that feel inevitable. The lyric is simple on purpose, pictures instead of pronouncements, because grief lands hardest when the writing gets out of the way. People who never knew Luther's family made the song their own because it made room for their families too. The record's first week sales, over 440,000, confirmed how hungry listeners were for that kind of honesty, and the album's guest list showed his reach across generations. April 16, 2003. Early morning in New York. Luther suffered a severe stroke at home and slipped into a coma that lasted nearly 2 months. When he woke, life had changed. Speech required work. Movement required work. Breathing efficiently enough to sing long phrases required work. The record he had finished moved through the world without him, carried by listeners who needed that song for weddings, memorials, and the quiet moments in between. Reports at the time kept repeating a sober fact: he never fully recovered from that stroke. Clinical summaries from the period underscore what he later said on camera. Long-term hypertension and type 2 diabetes put him at risk, and he wanted fans to treat those numbers like a set list you don't ignore. In a televised conversation the next year, he described the stroke as an outcome he wished he had prevented, a hard lesson he shared so others might avoid it. Doctors and therapists built a plan around what was possible. Sessions focused on articulation, breath support, and balance. Friends described a determination that looked a lot like his studio habits. Small goals repeated daily, tracked without drama. Some days gave back a little more than they took. Other days refused to bargain. Through all of it, he protected his privacy while sharing exactly what might help someone else. February 2004 became a proof of what the music deserved and how much it cost him to acknowledge it. The Grammys honored the work. Song of the Year for Dance with My Father. Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for the same recording. Best R&B Album, and with Beyoncé, Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group for their revival of The Closer I Get to You. He couldn't attend. He appeared by video to thank people, his words careful and deliberate, ending with a line many remember. When I say goodbye, goodbye, it's never for long, because I believe in the power of love. It didn't feel like a performance. It felt like effort, visible and moving. The celebration spread far beyond that night. Radio stations built whole hours around his catalog. Choirs arranged the title song for services where families needed permission to cry. A tribute album recorded by contemporaries and younger stars arrived soon after, less as a memorial than as a conversation with someone still here. You could hear how deeply his phrasing had seeped into singers who came after him. Later that year, he spoke with Oprah Winfrey. The message was plain. Know your numbers. Take care of yourself. Don't wait. Family members have said he wanted that conversation to nudge people toward treatment for diabetes and stroke risk. Even though speaking that long cost him energy he didn't have to spare. He turned a private struggle into public advice because he knew how many lives carry the same risks. In the months that followed, he focused on stability. Close friends visited on a schedule that respected rest. Business decisions were filtered through health first, not momentum. The plan was simple: protect gains, avoid setbacks, keep hope honest. He did not promise comebacks. He promised effort, and he kept that promise as long as he could. 2 summers later, time ran out. July 1st, 2005. Luther died at age 54 at JFK Medical Center in Edison, New Jersey. Officials did not announce a cause of death. Authoritative reports underscored what everyone already knew. He had never fully recovered from the 2003 stroke. The dates are simple. The ache they leave behind is not. The way people said goodbye tells you what he meant. At Riverside Church in New York, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Cissy Houston, Dionne Warwick, Patti LaBelle, and others sent him home the same way he had carried so many of them on records and stages, through songs. Mourners filled the pews. The service ended the way only a singer's farewell can, with music and gratitude braided together. So where is the mystery, and what gets solved? People built theories because absence invites invention. Some pointed to industry pressure. Some insisted there had to be a hidden scandal. Others treated his privacy as evidence. None of that is required to understand what happened. The documented timeline is enough. A fatal car crash he caused in 1986 with legal accountability and a settlement, long-standing hypertension and type 2 diabetes, a severe stroke in April 2003, a partial, difficult recovery, and a death in 2005 after 2 years of trying to adapt. That is not a plot twist. It's a medical reality and a calendar. If you need the night of clarity, there are two, and both are clean. The first is that Sunday in 1986, sunny, sudden, violent, when a lane crossing took a life and changed 6 more. The second is April 16, 2003, private, clinical, just as final, when a clot or a bleed rewired a brain that had memorized 1,000,000 harmonies. There was no chase, no saboteur, no second car, just risk factors, biology, and seconds that refused to give anything back. Yet the story is larger than its hardest sentences. Luther's craft rewired how ballads work in modern R&B. He proved that mid-register restraint can outlast fashion. He made duets into partnerships rather than contests. He taught producers that backgrounds are structure, not wallpaper. He showed younger singers that the quiet line, placed correctly, is stronger than any shouted ad-lib. That's why his catalog kept living after trends moved on. It still worked for vows, apologies, long drives, and rooms where someone needed courage. What he built also changed how the industry thinks about care. Schedules became kinder for artists in rehab. Labels learned that audiences don't need secrecy to stay loyal. They need sincerity and clear boundaries. When he accepted those awards by video, it didn't reduce him. It reminded people that strength can look like asking for help and showing up anyway. Listen to the second verse of Dance with My Father, and you can hear how his method operates. Air around the syllables, strings placed to hold the lyric instead of smothering it. A melody that climbs just far enough to feel like memory rising and then settles where the voice can tell the truth without strain. That's production as care. It's also the best argument for why his music outlasts biography. The craft makes the feeling inevitable. There were other through lines that mattered. He began in rooms where background parts carried the load, so he never forgot that harmony can be architecture. In duets, he didn't compete. He framed. With Beyoncé on The Closer I Get to You, he supported the shine without dimming his own. With Mariah on Endless Love, he kept the center steady. With Janet on The Best Things in Life Are Free, he found the pocket and let the track breathe. That humility is its own kind of command. The honors that arrived over his lifetime and just after tell their own story. 8 Grammys across different eras, multi-platinum plaques that stretched from early 80s vinyl to early 2000s CDs. A tribute album that gathered voices from different generations because they all trace some part of their style back to him. In memorials from churches to arenas, you could hear the same sentence in different words. He made hard feelings feel safe to say out loud. The formal record keeps pace with the sentiment. The Recording Academy credits him with 8 wins and more than 30 nominations, and his late career album reached the top of the pop chart. For the first time the same summer, his health failed him. If you set aside the noise and look only at the record, the ending becomes clear. A once-in-a-generation vocalist lived for decades with conditions that threatened millions, caused a crash in 1986, and tried to make amends, built a late-career masterpiece, suffered a devastating stroke weeks before that music reached the world, never fully regained what performance demands, and died 2 years later. The sorrow isn't hidden. It's ordinary. That's exactly why it hits so hard. So how should he be remembered? Not as a question mark, not as a rumor, as a builder, an arranger who knew that 2 quiet lines can hold more than a key change ever will. A collaborator who made partners sound like themselves, and an adult who, when given a small microphone after a large injury, used it to warn people living with the same risks. If you came for a final reveal, here it is in plain English. The Luther Vandross story ends with dates and diagnoses, not a villain in the wings. A stroke after years of fighting the conditions that feed it. A brave attempt to adapt. A farewell at 54. The lesson lives in the records he left and in the ordinary choices that keep families together. Know your numbers, keep your appointments, and treat health like craft. The mystery is solved. The music still does the rest.